that kind of like reminds me of like that thing where you can apparently the force you use to bite a carrot off is the same force it takes to bite your finger off, but that your brain won't let you do it.
No.
You don't think that's real?
Put your finger in my mouth right now.
To bite your finger off? There's like a bone there and everything.
No, I can bite pretty hard on my... I guess I just...
I can bite pretty hard, alright?
I feel like I could bite on my finger way harder and still keep it intact.
I'm going to need you to stop underestimating the strength of my teeth right now.
Well, welcome to the Manual Breathing Podcast.
Welcome.
Are you breathing manually yet?
Now you're thinking about it.
Now you're
breathing manually.
Where does the tongue rest in your mouth?
Oh.
It's constantly active.
What's another one of those?
I would say blinking.
I was just gonna say blinking's kind of one for me. Yeah. Or realizing, for me personally, it's like I think about, do I have an itch on my body? And then everywhere it just feels itchy.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah. For me, my own mortality.
You're constantly thinking about your mortality.
And now you're thinking about your mortality.
And how about breathing? See, I know you forgot about that during the last 10 seconds, but you're still doing it. I'm Jay.
I'm Caleb.
I'm Kagan.
And
I feel as though next time we should just introduce one person will introduce the rest.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't always want to be like the host though.
You have the best voice though.
Guys. Be sure to answer the poll down below. Who has the best voice in our podcast?
Man, I was getting really self-conscious after the last one. I was like listening to it and I was like, I sound like I smoke.
So now they know that, like anyone listens to this, but
Heather knows.
You're listening to yourself
talk,
and you just let anyone who decides to give us a try know that you're just the most conceited person on the planet.
Absolutely. Just want to get that out there on the table.
Is this our second episode?
Yep.
Officially?
Number 2.
Second official.
We've done hundreds before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I would say, we finally decided to put a mic. Otherwise, if we weren't podcasting, we would just sit like we are triangularly across from each other and just have a conversation in our room.
We've done hundreds of these. We were all ghostwriters for some of the most popular podcasts out there.
Yeah.
We're talking the Joe Rogan one. We're talking there's no other popular podcast. Yeah. We're talking...
And you can't even name the Joe Rogan podcast. You're...
No,
just calling it the Joe Rogan one.
Yeah, the Joe Rogan one.
Well, when people are like, did you listen to that Joe Rogan one?
Yeah.
You catch new Joe Rogan.
You catch new Joe Rogan.
You couldn't even get it off your tongue because it just felt so wrong. Alright, so what are we going to talk about today?
Wait, whoa, we don't even know. I mean, come on. You know what I realized today? One of us, and who knows, decide in the comments below. One of us is woke. One of us is very not woke, and one of us is a great mediator. And I think it's the perfect formula.
You know what I was thinking? Like, we keep mentioning the podcasts, or we keep mentioning comments and polls. What outlet of podcast has like a whole comments section besides YouTube? Maybe.
Hold on, let me check my podcasts app because I'm so cool.
Yeah, feel free to listen to us wherever you may, wherever you're listening to it right now.
You know, I like to think that we're trying to put things into people's heads that sounds more malicious.
We're trying to force an ideology upon you.
All right, hold on. I think that the main goal is to try and find things that are on the outskirts of people's knowledge and just shed a little bit more light on them.
Absolutely.
Like... It can be super important, it can be super dumb. I will say that there are 2 super important topics today, and there is my topic. And I wish we could coordinate that a little bit better, but I like the idea of just us having no clue what's going on, because then no one else will either, you know?
And we'll get some raw takes from something like that.
Some raw takes.
Well, I would say I would like to think our podcast is normally lighthearted in the sense that, we like to joke around and talk about anything and take any subject and be able to.
Kagan's got a question.
Oh, Kagan's raising his name.
Bold episode to say we are a lighthearted podcast.
I think in the business they call that a segue.
In the biz.
And I think Jay's right in that segue.
Hard.
Hit me, Jay.
Well, while there will always be plenty of opportunities to talk about this person, I feel like now that this is our first podcast since
our last podcast.
Since our last podcast and since this thing that happened, I feel like now more than ever would be a good time to talk about it. And that's just kind of my thoughts, or our thoughts, on the whole, the tragedy that was the helicopter crash that involved 9 victims, notably Kobe Bryant and his daughter, Gigi Bryant, or Gianna. And I just want to talk about like what Kobe kind of meant to me and what he could possibly mean to everyone else. And I want to point out first that my heart goes out, or our hearts go out to all the families of people, those involved in the crash, all 9 victims, of course. Kobe and Gigi, they meant the Bryant family basically meant a lot to me, and specifically Kobe. I mean, I don't know what do you guys follow basketball at all?
I was gonna say that while I don't personally follow basketball and never really have, one of the appealing things about Kobe is that he reached everybody, every country. There's somebody that knows his name, whether they watch basketball, play basketball, or do neither of them. Everybody knows Kobe, and he has that universal appeal to him.
Yeah, he kind of, I agree. He really transcended the sport in a way.
Absolutely.
And what's really tragic is that he was really good in his second wind of his life.
Yeah.
He's an Academy Award winner. He has an Oscar.
Yeah.
I gotta ask, what for exactly?
So
you didn't know?
He made
Dear Basketball.
Yeah, Dear Basketball. From my understanding, and I could be wrong. I think research really helps on these kind of topics, and my research is from my mind.
From the heart.
From my heart. He wrote a poem called Dear Basketball, and it was kind of what basketball meant to him growing up. And he turned it into a short film, and he actually got John Williams of Star Trek and Indiana Jones and Jaws fame to
do the score
for it, and it was amazing. I've seen it several times, and it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful story, and it was a wonderful tribute to basketball, and looking back on it, it's kind of almost a wonderful tribute to Kobe himself, and I don't feel the need to spend so much time on this. I feel like everyone has talked about Kobe in some fashion or another on their media outlets and what Kobe. The thing I want to say about Kobe is that like I've had my life has been a relationship to Kobe, one of hate and love, which is not unique. A lot of people had that same thing, but they had it at like the same time, that they would hate him, but they would respect him because he was so good. Like they would maybe, obviously the majority of people probably aren't Lakers fans, and whenever he'd go against them, they'd probably hate him. And maybe at the same time they respected his skill and they understood that he was good. For me, I grew up in LA for the first decade of my life. And obviously when you're really young, you kind of like the teams that your family or friends around you like. And so I guess in that sense, growing up in LA, I loved the Lakers. But at the same time, I always wanted that competitiveness to find a reason to go against the Lakers. Whenever they would play the Rockets, I loved Yao Ming, so I would always root for the Rockets when they were playing the Lakers. And then when I moved to Arizona, I felt this great opportunity to start going for the Phoenix Suns. And they had like Steve Nash and Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire, and maybe this doesn't matter to those listening who don't care about basketball, but this was like a good team. a good offensive team. And it was my moment to be like, to tell the rest of my family back in LA, the Sun, I'm a diehard Suns fan now. It's like this is it. Every time the Suns go against the Lakers, you'll find me rooting for the Suns all the time. And so in that sense, and this was when Kobe was hitting the prime of his athletic ability in basketball, I was like, I hate you, Kobe. Like you guys are going down. And so I didn't like the Lakers and Kobe.
So what brought you back around to liking him then?
Well, what happened was, and again, this, you know, I'll be the first to admit that I, like, during this time period, I was definitely a bandwagoner, but I just felt like I was able to call the Suns my own. And then by the time that their run of being a good team kind of ran out around 2008 or so, 2009, I went back to my roots and I was an LA fan again. And so I started, and this is right when Kobe and company were making the drive to get their next set of 2 championships. And they went to the finals like 3 times and they lost the first one. And so from then on, I was a Kobe fan again. And one of my fondest memories is when I had work during his last game. And I was sad I was going to miss it. And I called my dad during my lunch. And he was giving me like a play-by-play of the last game. And Kobe was just on a roll. He was making threes, making, you know, mid-range shots and hitting all his free throws and stuff like that. He ended up with 60 points, as maybe many of you all know if you guys followed him. And it was just something I'll never forget. And basically what I'm trying to point out is that maybe we all, especially since it's been like about a week since his passing, maybe we all have heard all the stories there is to hear, or maybe we've heard all the sadness that people have talked about feeling since then. But I just wanted to kind of put out a moment where, you know, Kobe he really represented a chapter of my life, and I can't really think of LA or Los Angeles without thinking of him. And you know, I think one last thing I also want to bring up is I feel like during this time, while most of the public is just talking about him being a good person and all that stuff, and being a great dad and all those things, I know that there's those out here, there's the detractors that maybe want to bring up his, you know, his past, his scandalous past, and I feel like I will say that I think that's an important topic to discuss. I feel like, you know, that time is not to be necessarily forgotten. I think it should be discussed, and what that means to his legacy and what that means going forward in society. That he did make a mistake, and whether or not, however you feel about that whole time of his life, I mean, that is something that was prevalent. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, this is my kind of thing on that. Like, I know that you're not supposed to, like, speak ill of the dead or whatever, and like that celebrities are put on pedestals and all this kind of stuff, but honestly, like, objectively, there's a 41-year-old man, like that's insane on its own, like, just that a 41-year-old like died.
How about
like,
you give a quick breakdown?
What's up?
If you're continuing with like the actual,
I don't know if it's like important to talk about.
Gotcha.
Just because
I think I know exactly the feeling, and I want you to continue, but I think to the people listening, like, maybe if you don't know, I think collectively maybe we would agree that it would be best to maybe look it up.
Yeah.
Kinda like, he was involved in a scandal that involved sexual assault.
Yeah.
And and he and again, we're not trying to like shun it away or anything like that. I just feel like that's just something I think it's important to know, maybe understand it. If you're a real Kobe fan, you should understand everything about that and throughout his life, and that's a big part of it. So I feel like that's something that's worth taking a look into.
Yeah.
But you were saying?
I think that, like, I agree in terms of, like, you know, like, we put celebrities on pedestals, like, we, you know, sometimes, like, turn them into these heroes that they're just people, but we do the same thing with any bad thing they do, and look, it's a serious thing that, you know, his controversy surrounds. Like, it's not something to just sweep under the rug or anything like that. I just want to I want to make it very clear that like he's a person and we shouldn't forget that, and like he's said certain things on the subject, and like, you know, who knows what, you know, we should believe or anything like that, but like all we know is a man is dead, and you know, chances are someone you know has been accused or did the same thing that he was accused of. It's just facts. Like, it's a hard thing to think about, but it's just true. And we can, you know, focus on that, and we can try and get everyone to be quiet about, you know, the fact that a man passed away, and like that everyone is saying all these good things about him. But like, all we know is that he's not perfect, we are not perfect, no one is. But it was a man who loved what he did and like inspired a lot of people to do what they love, and he went way too soon with the whole entire family. Like, he has a 7-month-old daughter. Like,
yeah, and yeah, no, exactly. And I want to know what you think, Caleb. But I think maybe there is no silver lining to this tragedy, and especially when it happened, I couldn't think of anything good that came out of it. And not that there's still anything good, but what I want to say is that I think it was good that there was time between that happening and now, in the sense that we've been able to kind of watch Kobe turn his life around in a way where we saw his daughters grow up. He has four daughters, and you know, like you said, one of them's like not even a year old, and we saw him become this great father to these beautiful girls, and we saw him become a great husband, and we just saw him learn from that's one of the biggest takeaways from this man's life, is that he made a mistake, and he's proof that you can come back from certain things. And, you know, maybe sometime down the line we'll discuss when there's a line that is drawn where you cannot come back from certain things. But I would like to think that in most cases there is a story of redemption to be had. And I feel like Kobe kind of personified that he became someone who could be loved in unison by everyone, even with his troubled past. And that when he passed away, the country and maybe the world even unified in a sense to mourn his passing. And so he represents a lot for me as far as human beings go. He's someone I look up to, as far as not continually beating myself up for things I may have done, or things that or maybe looking to him for when I'm having a hard time overcoming other people's mistakes in my own grudge and stuff like that. So, okay. What do you think, Alan?
I mean, I'd say there's very little words I can use to summarize this better than you guys did. Did a very good job of discussing it. So, all right.
I appreciate you guys giving me that time, and I appreciate your guys' input.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, hopefully we can come back to some, our regularly scheduled programming as far as the mood and tone we like to set. So
just, reset. Okay, so not going to pretend that there wasn't a heavy air in the room a second ago.
Yeah, I had to open the window for a little bit.
You literally did. All right, but we're all good now. We've paid our respects, and I think that it's time to... anyway, so have you guys ever heard of Duck Lake Sasquatchuin?
That's not what you're talking about.
No, I'm just asking.
Never heard of it.
Kagan, how did you come across this topic?
You've never heard of Sasquatchuin?
I've heard of Saskatchewan.
University?
The city.
Oh. Well, anyway, I'm not going to talk about that, but it's fun.
Oh.
Anyway, so my topic, if you guys would hear me out, it's the occupational hazards of solar panel installation. All right, something we all need to know about.
Yes.
I know that it's just a question that just keeps you up at night. You're like, what are the occupational hazards of solar panel installation?
I always see solar panels
And you're like, how'd they get up there?
How did they get up there?
We throw them.
Do they fall from the sky?
Catapult.
That's it.
Oh.
End of section.
So really,
throw 'em.
the hazards are it could fall through the roof. Someone could think it's really funny to sit in the catapult, and then they...
Kagan, for the sake of listeners, how did you decide upon such a subject?
Well, like I said, it keeps me up at night.
Oh.
Because, I mean, come on. But no, I hit the random article button on Wikipedia until I came across this, and I was like, there's no way that's even a thing. I never...
Before you go on that, can you guys explain your, like, Venmo transaction ordeal?
Oh.
So me and Kagan have a history of when we're paying for gym fees, any fees of the sorts, we work out. We pay each other over the service Venmo, and we send random Wikipedia articles to each other in full length on the message section of the Venmo transaction. So you learn a little bit, you get a little bit of money, it's a good time.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
So practicing that, the occupational hazards of solar panel installation came up, and for one, I did not know that that was a thing. I thought that you put down solar panels and that was fine and that was the end of it. Turns out, you know, we'll get there. We'll get there. So, solar panels are very popular, energy, all that kind of stuff. What's inside of solar panels is apparently a lot of poison. Like a lot of poison.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, just literally like... Oh my gosh. But they call it raw material exposure, which sounds much like better, you know?
That definitely sounds like something that's just going to burn a couple layers.
Who knew that, like, being able to capture the energy of a flaming ball in the middle of the universe might involve some potentially
dangerous
deadly
activities?
Do you want to know who?
Who?
Will Taylor. All
Will
right?
Taylor.
Elaborate.
Do you want, I'm like, talking about like capturing energy, like, do you want to know who, though?
Yeah, no.
You're not answering the right
We'll get to Will Taylor, all right? So, raw material exposure.
Yeah.
A bunch, I didn't write them down, but a bunch of scary sounding chemicals, it doesn't super matter, are inside of solar panels. It's ridiculous. So the actual hazards are, they're highly toxic, and you have to handle them to build the solar panels. And if something breaks while you're installing a solar panel, you have to figure that out. So there's chemical burns, inhalation of gaseous fumes. Don't know what that could do, but it doesn't sound great. And
probably burn the inside of your lungs.
You know, that might be it. Who knows? And they're flammable, so explosions. Actual explosions are a thing that can happen with solar panel installations.
That's just like...
They just blow up?
Is that transport and installation? Like, what happens if you get, like, hail? Or what happens if you get, like...
Hail, rain, water? You want to know about that?
Any
right,
of nature's wonders?
So, just literally, the materials, I can't remember which ones they are. Maybe something I should have written down. Actually, they explode when they touch water. Like, when water's mixed with them, they explode.
This is just...
So if there's like
Kagan, you would lose your mind in Chemistry 101.
There's a line fracture in the glass. Just, you know, some kids messing around in the street, throwing a rock.
Yeah.
And then it just happens to rain that night. You're like, your house is done for.
Okay, guys, I'd like to point out that on the previous podcast, we discussed about how bad the recycling system in Korea is and how bad recycling is in general, and now we're fear-mongering solar panels. I think you want to kill the Earth. Call back.
No, I've gone 180 on solar panels. Used to think they were cool, now I hate solar panels. I mean, I'm sure they're doing good things, but I hate them.
Should we make the show about good things that should be hated?
You know what? As long as it's only about this. And I'll call in if you have a bad experience with solar panels. Call Jay's phone.
We'll do this live. Oh, okay, so anyway, continue.
Yeah.
So installation,
yeah. So something that's involves solar panels is quartz.
Yeah.
And so there is like hand-to-mouth contact, accidental indigestion. I'm so upset with myself. Ingestion can lead to lung disease, so slow and painful death. And I didn't, kind of know this, but I was very surprised at the whole mining aspect of things. What are we in 1492? This is ridiculous. Why are we still mining?
Any materials come from?
The sun.
Oh my
Okay,
goodness.
I didn't know. I thought we were trying to replace things. I didn't know we were still digging into the ground so we could harness the sun.
You know, Kagan, earlier when you said that this podcast is a non-woke guy, a woke guy, and a mediator.
Is it becoming more clear?
I think I'm getting a feel for the assigned personality archetypes.
Yeah. And do you know what they're exactly what? Yes.
Here's what's on my mind though is that like it just seems like if you're a solar panel installationist, like
definitely not the word.
It's installer. If you're a solar installatron.
Yes.
A solar paneler. It just seems to me, and maybe this is like my lack of understanding, that the panel. I feel like these dangers come mostly when you're building the panel.
Yes.
Oh, so this isn't.
This is the construction and assembly type of deal. So, solar panel installation and all that kind of stuff that will come up in a second.
Okay.
Don't worry. But these are just the hazards from the materials that you're actually handling.
I was really concerned first.
Because Kagan, you promised something about installation. What's going on? But like some of the materials even in like solar panels are still being studied. Like we don't know the impacts that they will have on the workers, but more importantly, literally the earth. like we don't know what like using them and getting rid of them and all that kind of stuff. We don't know what impact it has environmentally.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
so
why a lot of these
your environmentalist crap.
Wow.
But I'm just saying, all right? These are literally supposed to like help the environment. And we're just like, yeah, I mean, right now they are.
That's kind of the thing that's discussed in a lot of energy classes, at least at the university that I go to, is the fact that a lot of the modern clean energy techniques use up so much material. Wind turbines, for example, kill off tons of wildlife every year.
So you're saying Trump had a point?
Just gonna
have to get out of here.
That, and that's the podcast.
It's been nice knowing you.
We're getting political.
But yeah, wind turbines cause a lot of deaths of wildlife to the extent where people have to go up and clean the turbines of the corpses of animals.
Why are you saying animals like it's a deer is going up there and dying from a turbine?
Have you seen a deer jump?
It's birds.
There's bats too.
Oh my god.
Cats can jump pretty high too.
Seen a cheetah jump?
You guys have seen those wind turbines 6 stories off the ground.
No. I mean, not to make light of it, but to totally make light of it. Like, it's fascinating to think about how, you know, we love Tesla. We love Tesla. Okay.
Okay, I didn't know.
Elon Musk's latest song, not very good. Continue.
Are you talking? Oh my god.
Just separate we'll talk about this later.
Don't doubt your vibe on it. Yeah, it's fascinating to think about like how everyone wants an electric car. It's like, yeah, there's no exhaust coming out of my car. There's no, you know, what's the worst part we see is when a big semi or something is driving away, making a left turn.
And they get in our way.
Pedal to the metal. And there's just a giant cloud of like exhaust.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a giant cloud
just a lot of
in
clouds.
the sky. You were looking in the opposite direction. You didn't see the truck. And you're just like, wow. And you actually like hate the person driving it. You're like, how could you release that into the sky? But you don't think about the process in which, where does the energy come from to charge these batteries? It still comes from the coal like burning factories that like make that energy. They're burning these fossil fuels and coals in order to create that energy for you to then feel good about yourself for having clean energy in your car, like lit in your car.
Additionally, I'm not an environmentalist, but the chemical composition of those batteries, I'm sure, aren't a great thing when people eventually ditch their Tesla Generation 1 to move on to Generation 2.
Batteries will give out. I mean, our phones, you know, my phone battery health, I just checked this morning, was at 83%, which means if I charge my phone all the way, I will get the equivalent of a brand new phone that started out the day at 83% charge.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
That is kind of...
Technology doesn't last forever, and at the end of the day, what's gonna do more damage to the environment? A chemically composited battery or a big hunk of metal engine? Big hunk of metal not really gonna do too much as it wears down, but also, again, don't know all the details on the entire process of decomposition of cars.
Well, let's talk about something you do know. You're an electrical engineer. Why doesn't technology last forever? Go. What did you do?
I stopped it.
Planned obsolescence. Why?
I did.
No, but to get back to your point, it seems like the specific topic you're talking about has to do more with maybe the potential dangers to people themselves. Like the direct danger of like literally, it's not necessarily about getting these solar panels, like having these solar panels and the consequences of or the benefits of having it. It's more about literally creating the solar panel and
what
putting
happens,
it on your roof.
And what happens to Will Taylor in all this?
Continue. I want to learn about Will Taylor.
So, that's talking about the chemicals that we're not quite sure. We don't know what's going on with them. Could be bad. Could be worse. And the chemicals we do know about... Yeah, couldn't be good. The chemicals we do know about, though, are just highly toxic and volatile when mixed with water. When mixed with... Like, I'm not just like... We've created waterproof fire. That's all I'm saying. Like, not that it didn't exist before, but, like, it's ridiculous that we're putting this anywhere. Why are solar panels so... This is... Wake up.
And
wake up, sheeple. Wake up,
the woke one.
So, workers are exposed to that, and also hydrofluoric acid, and other dopant, air quotes, gases and vapors, which probably aren't dope. And there's more flammable stuff in there that they don't even name, because why would they? All you know is that things are exploding and things are on fire. And that's just so you can have, what, no energy bill? Is it worth it, Caleb?
Does it say anything in there about like how often this happens?
Why don't you talk to Will Taylor about that?
All right, well,
continue.
Who is this Will Taylor?
Hit me with Will Taylor.
Take Will Taylor.
Hit me with this generic white name.
So, installation and operation. All right.
Yes, sir.
Now we're getting to the, well, really the meat of what's going on here. All right, the conspiracy that is solar panels. You know what? I'm gonna make everything a conspiracy.
I was just gonna say, are you gonna be the conspiracy one?
That's my character. All right. Anyway, so the hazards you got there. Maybe this one's obvious. Maybe it's not. Falling from significant heights.
Okay.
You know,
Could
we
never
see
seen
these
it
things on
coming.
roofs. I know. That's what I'm saying. They
feel like that's an accepted risk on the job.
Maybe.
I feel like part of being the installation team is that in your van you have a trampoline.
Yeah, yeah. That is usually what happens. The thing is, though, is that this is an obvious little thing that happens, but literally the Wikipedia article, and Wikipedia is Wikipedia, only brought up instances in California, and can you guess where else?
Kentucky.
Close.
California.
You're good. You're good. California, and France.
Whoa.
Wait, what?
That's what I'm saying. This is the only report.
Caleb was so close. I think you should play the lottery, dude.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry. I didn't guess California and California. I'm a fool.
I'm just saying, like, why are those the only two ones, Wikipedia? Does gravity not exist anywhere else? Real quick, test that. You have a roof over you right now, I bet. Jump off the roof. Oh, sorry. Unless you're in California or France, we know that you can get hurt.
Dangerous.
Please don't jump off.
And then it also said falls are more likely when the roof is old or damaged. Genius. How do you do it, internet?
Why do roofs get old or damaged?
I know.
It's why does technology fail us so?
That's what I'm saying. Well, it's the electrical engineers that are failing us.
Of course.
But, I forgot about this part. People are falling because there's unguarded and unmarked skylights. So people are walking on a roof,
just fogging
just like just doing whatever and falling through skylights.
Oh my god,
that's horrible.
And it's terrible, but I'm just like, how does no one think about that?
That's so horrifying.
Not only that, overhead power lines are apparently some sort of issue that people are dealing with.
So somebody's hit a power.
Somebody's hit a power line, and I don't think that that's a quick like one and done. You grabbed a power line and now you're gone. I think that you can't get control of your body, and then the old and damaged roof isn't doing you any favors, and you're falling from a significant height. See, it's all connected.
It's all one. It's actually just one man who hit every one of them. He fell into a power line and then down through a skylight and off a roof.
Imagine like you're building this, or you're installing the solar panel, and you lose your balance just for a second, and just out of habit, you just grab what's closest to you, and it just happens to be an electrical power line. And you just...
And you're gone.
Fried.
Like, it's just... Is it worth it? Is it worth it? That's a call to action.
Is it worth it? You're not going to let go and fall.
Yeah. You're going to be stuck to it.
So who is Taylor?
Of the Will variety.
Oh, you're talking about Will Taylor.
Yes.
Oh, we'll talk about Will Taylor. All right, so, for one, every single person who installs solar panels, like, for one, you're automatically... What up?
We thank you for accepting
we thank you for
this line of duty.
You're combining 3 high-risk industries: roofing, carpentry, and electrical work. Didn't even know that, like, I didn't even think about that part. I thought it was pretty much picking something up, putting it down. You get a second person up there to do the electrical work, and then another person to, I don't know.
You gotta take that stuff, like, up a ladder, too. Kagan, you helped me bring my TV cabinet in here, and I swear, like,
you shouldn't swear.
I
promise
to you, the listener, that thing was heavy as heck.
And
like,
look, Jay hits the gym. All right, I'm looking at his
We all
arms
hit
right
the
now.
gym, in fact.
I mean, yeah, but me and Caleb really just go to the outside. And
we hit the gym today.
It's really just verbal abuse that we're, but Jay's
you guys are training your mental...
This is so sidetracked.
You're sidetracked.
Kagan basically just said, Caleb, you and I are all brains, and Jay is just brains.
We're hitting the books.
Okay,
well, Jay's hitting the gym, you feel?
I'm just saying, it was very heavy, and it wasn't fun for the two of us. And I can't imagine solar panels are the lightest things in the world with all the flammable and volatile, gases and chemicals in it. And
what is it, a balloon? It's full of gases.
What? I don't know why you're yelling at me like it's my fault. I didn't make them. Anyway.
You invented Will Taylor, okay?
This guy doesn't.
But so I really can't think of without making jokes, I can't think of combining 3 super dangerous industries and then just putting them in one thing and be like, you, dude, Will Taylor, figure it out,
Yeah.
Maybe consequences, but maybe just get up there. We want to save money. And then you got exposure, because you're outside, literally on the thing that would protect you from the elements. So you don't have any protections from that. And then solar farms, I don't know if we've all seen them, but we all know what they are.
Very bright.
Looks like a giant black thing that you... if you look at Google Maps on a solar farm, it's just... Yeah, it's weird. But solar farms can stir up and expose soil-dwelling organisms. And 44 workers came down with big word, but valley fever. Whatever for valley
fever.
Yeah,
Yes, that is prominent in the Southwest, for sure.
So it's killing racists. Where's the Southwest?
We're in the
Southwest. I literally gave you a book
called The Southwest.
Describing the Southwest.
The Southwest. So it's
in
killing
detail.
Racists.
Just kidding, we're not.
And so you got all that for installing it. And then the end of life cycle and recycling of the solar panels, because you got to recycle the thing that is killing the earth and people and saving some rich people some energy. You got to take apart all these poison things by hand, which just gives you, what did it say? 2 to 3 times more handling than putting them together, by a person, by a dude, than so, just more time handling the actual literal poison. And then, because they're doing it by hand, it increases, just the regular risks of, sprains and, strains, punctures and all that kind of stuff. So, I just wanted to really inform you guys of all that and tell you that anyone who has solar panels is against the planet and people.
Who's Taylor?
Do you mean Will Taylor?
Yes!
A man I made up? Why are you guys bringing up Will?
I am so...
Wait, Will Taylor's not a person?
not a
He closed the laptop. Like, this isn't...
There is...
He isn't messing with us. This is like
no Will
done.
Taylor. What do you mean? Who cares? Hold on.
So
I can come up with
a
a Will
very
Taylor.
last minute change of my topic for the show today. I'm talking about Will Taylor from Bright Bazaar.
Let's see what
Will Taylor...
about Will.
In my Google suggested, it says Will Taylor gang. So there's a Will Taylor gang.
There's a
out
whole
there.
gang.
Probably from all the solar panels.
There's
he's
a Will
gotten
Taylor football. Out
Okay.
there. And then
Will Taylor
last thing, there's a
violins.
Will Taylor Bright Bazaar.
That's the one I saw, Bright Bazaar. Alright, so Will
Well-
Taylor, everybody. So today, I have decided to talk about something that was everywhere in the news, all over the world, a decade ago.
Okay.
2010, probably heard of it, Chilean mine incident. Where
2010, yeah. It's a good
I might
year.
need a refresher.
I'm gonna need a refresher. Okay, so back in 2010, 33 miners in Chile, South America, got trapped in a mine for 69 days. Nice.
All right. Well,
Well, you seem to
It's
you
okay.
said it.
It's okay. Good news. They all made it out. So
Oh,
we
so we can make jokes.
we can
Oh
make
my
jokes.
goodness.
Haha. 69. That's the sex number.
wait, what?
Whoa!
That's what that means?
So,
Okay.
I don't know if you're ever gonna bring this up. Actually, you know what? Just keep going. I don't want to jump the gun.
So it was a crazy endeavor. As soon as this mine collapsed, to get these guys out of the system, and basically the Chilean government brought in one mining operation, and they started drilling, and it just wasn't able to break through some of the rock in a fast pace. It would have taken, I think, somewhere in like the hundreds of days to reach them. Obviously not a wanted amount of time, a desirable amount of time. So, a private company in America offered to lend their drilling rig. So they bring this all the way out to the desert where this is all happening in the Atacama Desert. Probably pronouncing that wrong. But here's the thing about this desert. It's the hottest place in the world.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, already pretty bad. So it's the hottest place in the world. These guys are underground, no air ventilation really coming in, just stuck in this muggy, humid,
Wait,
hot.
Wouldn't you think it'd be
oven there.
cooler down there, though?
Not if there's any air flowing in or out of the system.
I mean, but if you're talking like 120 degrees and it's 30 degrees cooler, still
It got
hot.
and also for
Still
reference,
beach weather.
while it was incredibly dry up top, it was more than 90% humidity down there in the cave system.
This brings up something so important. Is 100% humidity underwater? I've always wanted to know.
Send in yours.
And I don't understand. Everyone's like, oh, this 90%
Yes.
is...
Before we get back, because this is a very interesting subject. There was one time where I saw on the Weather Channel, they said there's a 100% chance of rain. Like for the city we're in.
That's so
that
weird.
means if it didn't rain, like is someone getting fired?
Someone should get
Someone's
fired.
getting fired if it does not rain.
Is it raining that's 100% humidity? These are the
I'm
important
just
questions.
an electrical engineer.
We get it. You're an electrical engineer.
I'm
Whoa,
smart.
you're
Okay,
just the best.
So
is there, what's the yeah, go on.
So while they had plenty of nice moisture in there, almost an ocean under there, if it reached just 10% higher,
Yeah.
just be swimming in water.
Literally.
But
Besides,
up above ground, because it's in the middle of this desert, when they brought out the second rig, they were having huge problems with cooling these machines because machines need coolants if they're going to operate. They produce a lot of heat. They got to make sure that, and especially just the friction of the drill itself pressing up against the rock produces a lot of heat that needs to be cooled. So this needed to be imported from I think something crazy like 50 miles away. So just, they couldn't even get water from a local source for it. They had to bring these drills in from America. And finally, after the second drill failed because it hit some of this kind of tubing that they sent down into the system originally to try and reach the guys. It hit some bit of metal that it just wasn't built to press up against, and it broke the drill. It took a few days for them to get that working again, but eventually this is all long after they actually discovered that, yes, the Chilean miners are alive under there, 33 of them, everybody's safe.
So they were just drilling down to try.
They were just drilling down to try and hope that some of them were under there. Hope was very much lost until, miraculously, they bring up the drill eventually, and tied to the end of the drill is a note that says, we're 33 of us all alive down in here.
Oh my god.
That is a movie moment if I've ever heard of one.
Dope.
Everybody's celebrating, everybody incredibly excited up on the surface, because they had, at that point, pretty much accepted the fate of their husbands down there in the mines.
Okay, so can we talk about the fact that, like, that's just, everyone's, like, so, focused on how bad people are and all that kind of stuff. That is such a, like, humanity moment. Like, we're all in this together type of deal.
Every unit of the Chilean government was working at this moment to save these men.
Random people in America.
NASA was working. I don't even know what they're doing. Like, what are they going to do? Drop a mine from space? Like, drop a drill from space?
They have a
but
pen.
they were in on it somehow.
They have a pen that can write in space, so really,
yeah, true.
They probably just gave him one of those and was like, how cool is this?
And then the Russians gave him a pencil.
More than a dozen corporations from around the world were working to save these men, along with the entirety of the Chilean government.
When they didn't know for sure that they were alive.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
This is like
very incredible.
What's amazing is what you guys were getting at is the human aspect of wanting to save lives. You think about, like, how many people die in a day just, from bad things, like, whether it's like shootings or just car accidents or just things that, like, people don't have control over, and like people drown and all those bad things, that these things just happen, and there are so many more people who die in a day or in an hour, probably in a minute, than these 33, than the amount of people that were stuck in this mine. Right? It's
incredible because so many people want to attach a monetary value to a human life. And this, whether some people were doing it for good PR for their company or something of the sorts, there were people from all over the world, and at least some of them had the intention of just any expense, we're getting these men that can be saved out of this mine.
Yeah, and you bring up the, people dying in, like, car accidents and things like that. I saw a video on the old Tweeter sphere, and it was, like, I think it was in New York or some super, like, densely populated, like, city, and a SUV had hit a pedestrian and run over the pedestrian.
Yeah.
Like, the car was on top of the person, and the person's sitting there screaming. And so you just see, like, all these people, like ants, just running towards this car. And there's like 10 dudes there trying to lift the one side of the car. And they can't do it. And, like, more and more people are just running up to this car. Like, people are noticing. And there's people who have no idea what's going on. They're just seeing all this.
Yeah.
And they're just running. And, like, you talk about, like, they're not doing that for any sort of, like, oh, I'll be on the news. Like,
that's
they're
not
just
what you think about it in that moment.
Yeah. And it's just, and they eventually, like, there's like 30, 40, I don't even know how they were all, like, having a hand on this car. But they lifted it, and then people dragged out the guy, and they saved his life. And, like, it was the coolest thing ever. And someone had said, like, this is the part, and I'm totally stealing from this dude, but I can't remember who said it. But he's like, this is the part you don't see in apocalypse movies. This is just, like, this is humanity. Like, people are good. And, like, you know what? Stance of this podcast. People are better than you think. We all have good in us.
People are awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just, it's amazing that, like, you can, in the heat of the moment, there's this passion behind what you guys are saying. Like, humanity, there's a passion behind doing it, and there, you can get sort of like an adrenaline rush. What was that story? There was, like, this, like, mother who, like, lifted a car off her
yeah,
kid or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you could fact check that. That may not be real, but I just feel like in the you can care so much about someone or something that just superhuman things kind of overtake you, and you can like lift a car off of someone or just do something that you didn't think humanly possible. You know, like you said, we have these people trying to lift like however many ton car, like if it's a bigger car, like 2 ton, 3 ton car, like 6,000 pound car off of someone. And yet like when we're trying to get a couch into a brand new apartment, it's like,
you gotta call all your friends
that
that actually care about you, and they won't help you.
Yeah. I got pizza and drinks.
Please be friends with me for today. You were friends with me every other day.
This couch is sitting at the base of my stairs for the past 5 hours. Please.
So, to get back onto the whole Chilean mine incident.
Oh, you want to talk about that?
I do want to talk about it.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, a little bit. So, at this point, they've got 2 mines, both trying to get through to these miners. A third drill is brought in at this point. This is the craziest of the 3. It is an entire oil rig drill brought in, like one of the giant, like skyscraper-esque ones, buildings tall.
I've seen
brought in parts. I think it's roughly 30 trucks worth of parts, bringing it in to this spot in the desert in the middle of nowhere, imported all the way from America, just to save these miners. It is the one, I believe, that inevitably reaches the miners. This whole time, though, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of delays up to that point. There's a lot of times where the drills don't work, cooling systems fail. Like I said, one of the drill bits hit something that it couldn't take, and it failed. And here's something that I want to talk about. During this time, there's a lot of doctors there to advise on how to keep these men alive down in there. The body's not meant to be in this confined space, mentally, physically, dealing with this. They got to get food down to them, what the appropriate nutrients you should be getting when you're not exposed to any sunlight or anything like that. And one of the things that they advise is don't share the information with these guys about what's going on up here. When there's a failure, don't tell them.
Okay, well, I mean...
And that is the process that they go with, and once the whole situation is over, there's advisement from the doctors that there wasn't enough censorship of the information coming into them, even though a lot of the families wanted to keep them updated with what was going on. The families of these men. Eventually, the men did figure out, hey, there's problems going on up there, partially from family members and also because they could hear the drills stopping at times. And they were like, hey, what happened to the noise?
But real quick, are they, because they have a hole that's down there and they got a note up, are they just dropping food into this hole that's there already?
So it's like an unbelievably small tube, and also I think the way that it had to go in was like a spiral pattern through the earth, slowly descending downwards. I can't quite remember the reasoning for why it went down in that way, but it was not an escapable route for them, pretty much.
But I'm just talking like food. How are they getting food?
They were dropping food down, I believe, the same chute that they were aiming for.
Alright, dope.
But they were able to get them food somehow, and nutrients.
What I'm kind of noticing here is like the power of hope.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
Like if you were stranded on an island and you were told, hey, you will be saved. It's just going to take 3 months. You know, so like whatever you can do, you know, to try to keep yourself alive, or maybe even more maybe even more dire. Like if you're on a rescue, like a ship is sinking, and you are on a life raft, and maybe you have like at most like 5 days of food.
Yeah.
And if you somehow you just knew like I'm gonna be saved in 30 days.
Yeah.
I feel like you would have it's the power of hope. It's like it's knowing that you're going to be saved or something, or maybe even like
It gives them the drive to keep going.
The drive to keep going.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, if you only had 5 days worth of food and you're like, wow, I'm in the middle of the ocean, I don't know if I'll ever be saved. I don't know if there were that amount of people on that ship, on that raft, like 30 people, I don't know if every single one of those people would kind of make it. I mean, it's the same mentality. I mean, if you put it on like a lesser scale, you think about why people get trapped in these ideas that like, oh, I need to do 8 to 12 reps of this thing. And it's like...
Are you talking about working out?
Yeah, I am. I'm equating this whole situation out.
He got so deep, and then he was like, hey, guys, I lift a lot of weights.
But I'm just talking about the mental thing about like where you're like...
You're like benching like...
In your mind.
What are you benching though? Like just...
Somewhere around between 800 to 1,200 pounds.
That's... Yeah.
A little weak, but continue.
If looking at you. Like,
in your mind, you get stuck in this thing where it's like, okay, 8 to 12 reps. You know, that's what you hear on like guides and YouTube and stuff like that. So by the time you get to like the 9th rep, you're like, okay, well I can, you know, then for some reason your body's like, oh, I can only do one more. But let's say if you were told you need to be able to do 20 reps of this thing. You need to be able to bench this thing 20 times. Then I feel like in your mind and your body you tend to go like 15, 16, and then you get up to there.
The thing about these Chilean miners is that...
Why do you keep bringing these guys up? We're talking about working out.
It was never during the process, for sure, that these guys were saved. Just because they knew they were alive down there. There was so much going wrong, and these guys were not in a place where they were like, this is it. There was another, I think, incident where one of the drills did reach down to them, and it caused a bunch of problems with some of the mine collapsing even more.
Oh my gosh.
So there was risk of the mine collapsing on them more at any time and crushing them in there. So... At that point, do they deserve to know the direness of their situation? Another thing that happened to them. They're a bunch of miners. They loved smoke. They were cut off from cigarettes by the doctors during this time. What? And it was a contested issue because the doctors were saying this could put them in a lot of danger down there. Like it's not healthy for them. They can't be smoking this. We need them in the best health to make it through this if this lasts a long period of time. It eventually caved. They gave them the cigarettes. It started with them giving them nicotine patches for a while, actually, down there.
Hilarious. That's interesting.
And they were bitter. They made jokes about it on the news and everything.
That's fascinating, too, because it's like, you know, if you're in a situation where someone, like, no one knows, like, are these guys going to make it? Are they not going to make it?
Yeah.
Like, and obviously it's well known, like, cigarettes are bad. Yeah.
But really cool.
Very cool.
Like, you are the coolest if you were smoking a cigarette.
You ever seen that camera with the sunglasses?
Knock it off.
Marlboro Man? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Bring that back.
How do you pronounce that? Marlboro?
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 Marlboro. American Spirit? I think that's the correct way to pronounce it.
Still breathing there?
You breathing manually?
No, I just want to, on a tangent, like, it's if you don't know if someone's going to make it, do you let them... It's like those Looney Tunes cartoons.
Do you let them put themselves a little more in danger, but give them a happier going off, if that is the case?
Do you guys remember the Looney Tunes cartoons where, like, they'd see themselves, like, about to be hit by a train?
Yeah.
And so they'd put on the blindfold and then, like, smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
Like there's... This
was dark.
Yeah.
No, those are like there's tons of cartoons from way back then when smoking was cool. You know, they'll
so
start...
to bring it back...
I
love these miners.
I'll bring the segue back. I just want to say, like, you know, for these miners...
Yeah.
These miners, not miners. Miners.
The miners.
Oh my gosh, wait, there's 17 and stuff?
These miners.
So, like, you don't know if they're gonna... You don't know if they're gonna make it. They especially don't know.
Hey, whoa. Just calm down, alright?
They especially don't know if they're gonna make it. Do you, like, having them go through, like, withdrawals... when they're on the verge of death, like,
or just putting them at some some sort of peace as they go out, because we always talk about how we don't want to die on our deathbed with 1,000 tubes going into us in a miserable state.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be alive, but you won't be happy.
Yeah.
So it's the same circumstance with these guys. Do you want to give them a smoke, even if it puts them in greater danger? But if they're going to die, they don't want to go out with a bunch of crappy protein packs that these doctors are giving to them. And that's what eventually the morality ends up siding in favor of, giving them the cigarettes with the urging of these families, because they think that if they're going to go out, they might as well have an enjoyable time with it. So they might as well enjoy whatever few pleasures they can in their situation.
Whenever we discuss like these time lengths, like people are trapped for 69 days, nice. Yeah. I always think about what's in the middle of this. Like what's happening on like day 43? Are they like playing cards?
At this point, they had formed church services down there.
Whoa.
They had a man acting as their pastor. They had team leads. They had 3 groups planned out on the actual evacuation based on the weak, the skilled, and the strong. They had everything going on. There was a webcam down there at that point that was allowing them to have interviews with news agencies as they're in the mine still.
Jeez.
So it was turning into a fully functional little society down there.
Yeah.
But inevitably, when they made it out of the mine, when they were finally rescued, they were greeted by the president of Chile, and the doctors compared their mental health to that of a newborn baby. They were compared to babies.
How so?
Just because of their frailty to basically the world around them, to sensory overload, basically, just from everything happening, noise, visual input. You're in a dark mind.
So it's all like sensory.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So, also they had to wear, of course, special sunglasses, stuff like that. When they got out, their eyes had not been acquainted to high sources of light for ages now. They got out, but apparently their physical health got recovered remarkably fast. The president invited them to a football game.
I hear they actually started a gym down there too.
I did to get some massive gains and get that drive going. Yeah. And one of the things that sucks at the end of the day, and I finally found the issue of this story while reading up on it.
Which day?
Not on the. They've escaped at this point. They made it out. They've been rescued. Okay. Was that the mining company that owned the mine? There had been numerous incidents in their mines recently. I think like 8 people had died in their mines over the last decade, which any death is awful. It might have even been in a shorter period of time than that. But all charges were dropped against the company.
Oh.
With the mine. So.
Well, wait, it wasn't the company's... Like, what started the whole, like, cave-in or whatever trapped them?
Previous geological instability at the old mine and a long record of safety violations for the mine owners, San Esteban Mining Company, had resulted in a series of fines and accidents, including 8 deaths during the dozen years leading up to this incident. Following 3 years of work, lawsuits, and investigations into the collapse concluded in August 2013 with no charges filed.
So what
led to the collapse of the mine?
Of that specific mine?
Not sure on that
one.
Did they...
So we don't research here.
So did they quit?
Yeah, were they fired?
No. Well,
you guys have been working for 69 days. This
is ridiculous. Get out of here.
You come back to a job.
You know how much coal you could have brought up with you?
This is what I'm saying. Why are we still mining? There are 33 people trapped there for industry.
Well, I don't know what these guys are doing today. Wonderful men, all of them.
There should definitely be like a movie about that.
There is a movie actually.
Oh, this is
called
so
33. Very awkward. Sorry to put you on that spot. Go see 33.
Did you watch it?
Did not watch it. I watched another documentary on it.
You watched a documentary?
I watched a documentary. Yeah, Mister. We don't do research on this. I watched the whole documentary. You watched a documentary on
weird that you're not
solar panel.
No, injuries. I talked to Mr. Taylor. All right, personal interviews. Get out of here.
So I think it's worth a takeaway that nobody faced repercussions for what happened there that day. I guess it was just chalked up to nature acts like that sometimes. While it is suspicious that 8 people died in their mines within the last dozen years, it shows a sense of irresponsibility.
Do we know if that's a big number?
8 over a dozen years? I'm sure it's not compared to certain countries, but I mean, imagine 8 deaths in like Target over a dozen years. You'd look at it a little funny. Yeah. I mean, no deaths should happen at a workplace, pretty much. I know some areas are more dangerous than others, but
that's like something like death at a workplace is like, I guess maybe there are some people who truly love their jobs, but I think for the most part, you're working because of the way society is, where you're trying to make money
ends meet.
for that you're trying to make ends meet, even just for like basic living, but you're trying to also make money for things outside of work. You're trying to make that money to enjoy, to spend it on things you might enjoy, or even spend it on things you just need to live. And so I mean, I guess to wrap around what you're saying, what I took away from what you've told me is that it was kind of amazing, the will to live.
Yeah. Of all those men down in there.
The will to live, and the will to help help others continue living.
Yeah. And just one more thing on top of that, the actual shift manager was a very commendable man and decided to be the last one to leave the mine.
Wow, big man.
Very big man. He took a lot of charge down in there, and he decided to be the last one to leave. Imagine that, being everybody else is already up, and you're just waiting on
because you don't know, like,
it could break still.
Could still collapse all over.
You know what we should do? We should try and tie all the stories together at the end of these.
And then they all went on to work under Kobe Bryant's solar panel company.
Hold on. Hazards of the workplace.
Are you looking for a moral thread throughout all this?
Morally, no. I literally just the actual like stuff that you look for the moral stuff. You're the woke one.
Yes, sir.
I mean, spoilers. But anyway, like, I think, okay, so for example, Kobe didn't like fly a helicopter because it's like, I mean, obviously he had the money for it, but he didn't fly because he was rich. He was like, I don't have the time to like drive my kid here or like all this like he was like, I literally don't have the time, because if I'm doing my stuff and they're doing their stuff, like I want to be able to spend more time with them. That's why he took a helicopter around. So it was, you know, I mean, I guess his job was being a dad at the time, but even he started because he needed to do practice and stuff. So occupational hazards, that's the thread.
That's the thread.
Call this episode Occupational Hazards.
Occupational hazards.
And that's been the Will Taylor Variety Hour, and don't go to work.